Welcome to the Sports Resort, your home for all things sports, with your hosts G Money,
Tay,
Padre T.
and Connor. Let's get to it. Welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Resort. This is your host, Gannon Cornley. So glad to have you guys back here with us now on our 6th episode. We had a pleasure having one of our hosts back last week, Connor. Just like episodes 1 through 4, he is indeed mission in action. We have another story to tell you guys this time around.
Connor promised us he would come back to the podcast. He said he would make it multiple weeks, and he was going to, until some dastardly little devil demon from the desert slipped a cactus into my man's fat-free yogurt. You can't make this stuff up, folks. He ate a cactus thinking it was yogurt. Our thoughts and prayers are with him. Get those pricks out of your mouth.
my thoughts and prayers are with Connor. Probably won't see him on the podcast again, so we may actually have to have a funeral. We'll keep you guys up to date.
Yeah. It's disappointing. He tries so hard, but
to not show up.
Very true. Very true. But nonetheless, the show must go on as we now are finally getting into some real live sports that we can actually talk about. So I'm so glad we can get going on that. We do have a special guest here tonight with us. My main man, Zach Hill, here to preview NHL that's returning coming up this week. So he will be joining the podcast a little bit later. We're so glad to have him on the show. Big thanks to him. But nonetheless, let's get started here on our 6th episode. And we decided to go with our favorite 6 in sports. Now, I'll go with mine first. Mine was real simple and easy. I only really have one name. Even though he plays for a team I don't really like. I still decided to go with my man Bill Russell, 11 rings. I think the most iconic 6 in the sport, in any sport really. That's what I went with.
Of course, a legend, a Boston sports legend. I'm going to stay on theme for my 6. The 6 Super Bowl rings the Patriots won during the 2000s. So, tied for most ever now. They had none before I was born. As soon as I was born, I think that's when the Patriots started becoming world powers. So, all credit goes to me, of course. Amazing Super Bowl performances by the Patriots, too. Every game, close, exciting. I think for all of our sakes, we should see the Patriots in more Super Bowls because they're always so much fun.
Not a chance.
Did you call them a world power?
They are. USA, 53 Super Bowls, other countries, 0. So step up your game. If you're listening to this from the Netherlands or Japan, step your game up. I love you, Japan.
Moving on to my favorite 6. I picked someone a little bit unconventional. Ben Wallace. Played for the Detroit Pistons, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. There's a healthy debate about whether he's considered a superstar of his time. I think yes. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. 2 in a row. Took a break off, just like Connor did in the podcast. Then won 2 more. Doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, he and Ben Wallace can relate quite a bit. And Connor was actually the one saying that Ben Wallace was not a superstar. So
you heard it first. Connor, you're not a star.
Yeah, so Connor is number 6. He alluded to this last week when he said the Pacers would have 6 championships if it weren't for Michael Jordan's Bulls. Said he would have won every single one of them. So we fact-checked that. Of course, it was wrong. Advanced Google can show you some amazing things when you look at Pacer stats. But I do want it known the Pacers were very close in point differential in all those series that they lost in the 90s. So it's almost like they won them in the minds of Pacers fans.
I thought his favorite 6 was going to be LeBron in Miami.
That's another very inside joke for our group. Our man Leslie, R.I.P. we had some good times with Heat and Pacers in those days.
The 6 points could also stand for the 6 possessions that the Vikings left on the board against the Saints on the bid to go to the Super Bowl. It was like 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, big time mistakes going into the overtime.
I mean, they could have taken a knee and kicked a field goal from there.
Nah, Blair Walsh can't be out there kicking.
I don't even think he
goals.
was their kicker yet.
It don't matter. Blair Walsh was there in spirit. He's always been there. Super Bowl 4 when the Chiefs whooped the Vikings, Blair Walsh was there.
Ain't that the number of kicks he missed? Whatever year they actually had the good team and they ended up losing to Seattle at home.
The kick was inside the 6, I know that,
Yeah,
and he still missed. It was
6.
probably below 6 in the game.
Tragic. Keep Connor in your prayers, everybody. Him and Leslie.
Oh, Leslie, that's... Yeah, we'll hold off on him for another time. All right, so while Connor might not agree with Blair Walsh's kicking decisions, the NFL and the NFLPA finally did reach an agreement to finally kind of get players back into their training facilities, as training camp is now underway, or set to be underway, as I believe quarterbacks and rookies were last week, and more players will be starting to reach their training facilities. This was kind of growing into a big deal. A lot of players on social media were calling out the NFL for not what they believe to not be a safe place given the COVID-19 and everything. And pretty much on my Twitter feed, I saw almost any NFL player, you name it, they were all kind of tweeting at the NFL. So it's a good thing that they finally got an agreement kind of what their plan in place is. Lots of testings, lots of social distance, and there's a whole bunch of rules, but what was your guys' original reaction?
The big takeaway I had was that they're cutting roster size from the usual 90 down to 80 to help with social distancing, which has to suck if you're an undrafted free agent this year. You get picked up. It's unlike any other year. And they're like, hey, look, buddy, you're good enough, but we can only take 80 at this time. They probably never get their chance to show out in camp. There's a lot of good UDFA stories. Like, imagine the Broncos. Philip Lindsay gets cut because they cut the roster by 10. They let Philip Lindsay walk. That's 2,000-yard seasons the Broncos miss out on. So even though it might not seem like a lot, just cutting 10 players down from a normal roster size, I think those 10 players could make a huge difference in training camp, especially with injuries, reps, stuff like that.
Yeah, sticking along with that, the thing I was interested that they got agreed was the no preseason games. I thought that was huge. There's not something that I would have thought the owners would ever give up, not getting at least one. I figured the players and the owners at least would both want one preseason game. Just like you, I think there's going to be a lot of decisions made in camp, which is going to be crucial. I think that we're going to see some players get cut that in the regular season with games against someone else probably could have the chance to make it. When I saw that, I thought back to Chris Harris Jr., who we picked up as a Broncos in 2010, undrafted free agent. And I saw his exchange on Twitter, and he said he had no idea playing just in camp if he would have made the roster without being able to put live game tape out for the Broncos. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think some GMs are going to be stressed overnight trying to decide between keeping someone who can help the program down the line rather than keeping a veteran.
And what I think this actually is ultimately going to lead into, unfortunately, is a lot of injuries. Because think about it, these guys they're already not having their normal off season. So they're already not necessarily training like they normally would be. They're not putting their body kind of through the ringer like they normally would. Now you're taking away, for most starters, probably two games, because they'll probably play a half for the first 3. So about almost 2 games full worth. of actual live action. Now you're not doing any of that. So to see if what these players are about, I mean, I would imagine they have to do some type of live scrimmaging within this training camp, things you wouldn't normally do because you would have the preseason games for that. So now I feel like there's going to be a lot of unfortunate injuries that's going to happen. And I don't know. I believe aren't they allowed to carry over the 80-man roster into the season? Is that how that's going to work? Or they still have to cut it down to 53?
I'm not exactly sure how they're going to do the active rosters. I know they cut it from camp, which was an interesting decision, I thought. Because if you're going to test all the players anyway, having 10 more guys there without COVID wouldn't affect it as much, I would think. But yeah, like there's a lot of unknowns. A lot of times you'll see in training camps they'll have the joint practices where teams will come in, and that's where you could get a lot of the tape. It's just in those scrimmages before you actually even play in the preseason game, and they're not going to be able to have that. I highly doubt they'll have that through all of this. So yeah, it's gonna be a different offseason, and unfortunately, like Gannon said, I think it will lead to some injuries. You just got to hope the guys were working out a lot by themselves during quarantine, but there's really no way to simulate live game action.
One thing that is happening, I just saw this, I think Gannon's looking up too, the practice squad increased to 16 players. I think that is a big deal.
That's going to be huge.
Because, again, if we are, like we're saying, I do agree with the potential injuries. Increasing, being able to pick up players from your practice squad and trusting them and throwing them into games is a major deal, especially with losing 10 people to start off. So, not the year to be an undrafted free agent, but I'm sure we'll see some guys take the opportunities and make the most of it.
Yeah, but this also could be, I mean, if you get listed on those practice squads, this could be maybe not a better time to be on a practice squad because, I mean, if there's going to probably be increase in injury during training camp, for sure during the season as well. And now they're implementing that you can have up to 16 players in your practice squad. You can have 4 of them that are protected from poaching. So if you're on a practice squad, literally any team in the NFL can sign you at any point in time. So just because you're on like the Chiefs practice squad doesn't mean some other team couldn't sign you. So to have 4 players that now can be protected from that, kind of like these are our next 4 guys in line, I think it's a pretty good thing. Just in case you never know if you're short at a position by chance, and if you have an injury, that way that guy for sure he's within your locker room. So I think that's a good thing that the NFL got that right. But yeah, I don't really know what cutting just 10 people is really gonna do. There is actually a way that you can maintain a 90-man roster. You have to have split squad sets up. So basically, you just can't have your entire team together at one point in time, which I think that's not very good strategy, in my opinion, just because I've been through several training camps before, and to not have your whole team together when you haven't been together for months at a time, and you're about to go into a season where you can't even play a game, no preseason games rather, I don't think that's the greatest strategy. I wouldn't do it. So, yeah, I don't know who this says some teams have been trying or considering going the split up sets and going with the 90-man roster. But I can't imagine. I don't know. That's just not something I would do.
I think that first 2 weeks, is going to be some low-scoring games. I think we're going to see a lot of people running the ball just because wide receivers and quarterbacks aren't in the rhythm that they usually are going through, like you said, two full preseason games. There's not going to be a lot of timing, especially a lot of teams that added receivers and quarterbacks, Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina. That'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, well, Bleacher Report told me that Cam Newton was throwing to Julian Edelman with the eyes emoji, so, we've been getting in that work all summer.
Y'all just signed that man a couple weeks ago.
And he was already throwing with Edelman. The team chemistry is off the charts.
All right, so are you rooting for the Patriots or the Buccaneers?
Both.
Patriots, but I will cheer for the Buccaneers to win the NFC because of the principle of Tom Brady.
Can I expect you on a Scotty Miller jersey?
No chance.
The hate.
There's 2 receivers that we put in the top 10. They have 2 top 10 receivers. My favorite quarterback, one of my favorite tight ends of all time. No, it's Scotty Miller.
One player that will actually need to kind of adapt quickly to his new team will be star safety Jamal Adams, as he was recently just traded from the New York Jets to the Seattle Seahawks in a mega trade. The Seattle Seahawks, where they will receive Jamal Adams along with a 4th-round pick, and then the Jets are compensated with 2 first-round picks, one in 2021, the other in 2022, along with a 2021 3rd-round pick and safety Bradley McDougald. Who do you guys think won the trade?
The Jets, by far. Actually, not by far, but I still think they ended up winning. Now, what they do with those draft picks will be very interesting. Not the best front office in the league over there, not making, any good decisions besides finally giving Jamal Adams his wish. I don't think you're going to find someone in those, 3 picks that comes in and makes the immediate impact that Jamal Adams does. But sitting on Seattle's going to have to pay him a large sum of money. And they already pay Russell Wilson a percent of the salary cap and Bobby Wagner an ungodly amount of money. So it'll be interesting to see how they keep their core pieces around, because unlike Mahomes, Russell Wilson's contract increases every season for the next 4 years.
Somehow the Seahawks will win this trade because the Jets don't win anything. So Jamal Adams will probably go to Seattle. He'll be great. He was great in New York, and if you're great there, you can be great anywhere. So he'll go to Seattle. He'll be great. I think Seattle was missing a few pieces from their team. For example, the offensive line piece. And then a strong defensive backfield, which they had when they were going to Super Bowls. McDougald, a pretty good safety in his own right, going to New York, won't have near the impact on a game that Jamal Adams has. And when you're going up against a team like a San Francisco 49ers team, you need a safety that can do more than just stop the pass, which Jamal Adams has proven he can do. So I think the Seahawks win the trade, mostly based on Jets' incompetence. But I'll tell you the real loser, Le'Veon Bell, who went on a Twitter tirade after this trade, much like you'd expect from Le'Veon Bell.
I mean, do you fault him in his rant?
Not in the least.
Nope. Still a loser, though. In this deal.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I think they're shipping him out next. They have no reason.
I don't think he'll complain.
And then that makes Le'Veon Bell a winner.
Yeah, I don't think that makes. Yeah, I think he'll be fine with that because I feel for Le'Veon Bell, man. I bet you that whole time while he was kind of going through everything, Jamal Adams was like, yeah, man, we'll build something great here. We'll do something, make the Jets relevant again. And he's the first one to jump ship. But overall, in my opinion, I think the Seahawks won this trade. For one, I look at it as the Seahawks are already a very good team. And they're just missing a couple steps to get back to the Super Bowl. I mean, they were in the divisional round last year. Ones can make the argument that the Packers did not necessarily get too much better from last year to this year. I think the Seahawks, especially if they find a way to re-sign Clowney as well, I think the Seahawks definitely got better. So the team that knocked you out, I think you might be going into the season better than them. You weren't that far off from the 49ers last year. You beat them once, and then were 2 yards away from sweeping the team that went to the Super Bowl. So I don't think they're too far off, and I don't think they're gonna take a step back either. So the value of those 2 first-round picks, I don't think will be as good of a caliber player that they can get like Jamal Adams to begin with. So if they're drafting 24 in the 30s possibly, I don't think that the Jets, a team already shows that they can't turn that many draft picks into Jamal Adams, who they literally just got rid of. I don't think that the Jets are. I don't know. I just don't see that the Jets got too much better from this. They got a worse safety. You got products who I don't think will be better than the one you just gave up. And I think Seattle's a little bit closer to the Super Bowl.
And this is actually right up Seattle's alley because this past draft was the first draft in several years that they haven't traded out of the first round. So this is exactly what Seattle wants to do. Get rid of the first round picks that they'd be drafting late in rounds, sign the superstar, go from there. I think this is right in Seattle's wheelhouse.
That's why I was surprised he went to Seattle. I thought the Jets were giving up Adams. They trade him to a team that they know is going to be within that 15 to 20 range for the next couple of years, not back in later into the draft, because they've been drafting pretty high up and haven't really found any contributing pieces immediately, which is why I think that the Seahawks are... I mean, they got the better end of the deal. Bradley, he's not a horrible safety, but he's not stepping in and giving you the leadership and the defensive recognition that Jamal Adams gave you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Jamal Adams is, if you follow him on social media at all, that man is happy. Perez is definitely happy. So I'm happy for him. Toby called it, I think it was, I don't even know, episode 1 or 2, a couple weeks ago. He said that the Seahawks would be a major play, and he hit it right on the money. I honestly did not think the Jets were going to get rid of him. I thought they would be like, suck it up, dude. No, you got 2 more years in your contract here. You're not going anywhere. But I guess his recent comments about Adam Gase and just kind of going back and forth with the head coach just was too much for the front office. So congratulations to him. Sorry, Le'Veon Bell. Sorry, Sam Darnold. The Jets actually weren't even that bad of a team last year. They went 7-9, and their quarterback had mono for 3 games. It's not too bad. So tough times if you're a Jets fan, if you ask me.
Speaking of tough times, the Chiefs' offensive line is, at least at right guard, is going to need some help. That's all I'm going to say about that. They need... I know they signed They signed a free agent today, but he ain't...
Yeah, if they had signed Kelechi Osemele like 2 years ago, then this would probably be a non-story all around. But you're losing your starter for the past 5 years at right guard, played 80-some% of the snaps last year. But you knew if there was going to be a guy to sit out from COVID, it was going to be Duvernay-Tardif. The guy's a doctor, extremely smart, probably the smartest in the league now that Andrew Luck's gone. He's been helping out with the fight against COVID, so I wasn't surprised to see that he said he would take a break from football right now, because he has made it very clear that doctoring is something that he really wants to do. He really wants to pursue post-football career. And so I wasn't really surprised by the news. It's just going to be a little bit more of a patch job, because the only other person that could slide to right guard now is Andrew Wiley, who had to start last year for the Chiefs. But there's a reason you draft a lineman in the 3rd round for situations like this where you need to patch up an offensive line. So I think this won't hurt the Chiefs too much. Of course, it'd be nice to have your starting right guard out there, but roll with the punches. The guy made his decision, and I respect him.
Yeah, it's not detrimental. I don't think this is a detrimental move for the Chiefs. It's not like, oh man, this was supposed to be our go back to back. Now it's gone. I think they'll be okay. The O-line, because I think, just in my opinion, going into the season last year, I didn't really view the Chiefs O-line as really all that great, and I felt like they got a lot better as the season went on. So there's nothing that doesn't make me think that they can't do that again. So even with plugging in new players, just kind of as when Mahomes went out, they did a pretty decent job of protecting Matt Moore. Then Mahomes came back, and the Chiefs kind of hit the ball rolling after that. So I don't see this as a detrimental move for Kansas City, really. Got to respect the guy, though. This is, especially in times like this when we need all the help we can get all around the world. I really respect the move, and hopefully he can return to football again. I know he's opting out of the contract for now, and who knows, maybe we get a hold of COVID and he's able to return next year or the season after that, because he's not fairly old, so he has plenty of time left, I would believe, in his playing career. So it sucks, like, if you're a Chiefs fan, it sucks to not have your starting right guard, like Toby said, but I don't think it's enough to be a hazard.
It's for a very respectable reason too. He's not just
Yeah.
opting out to not play. He's going to be on the front lines of
Avery Bradley.
God, don't get me started. He's opting out to go be directly on the front lines of a pandemic. So kudos to him.
And something else we're going to give kudos to, the MLB. They're back.
Ooh.
They're back, and they're playing games. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm excited. I've been watching these games over the past weekend, and I mean, it's been enjoyable. It's definitely weird to not have fans there, but I mean, I think that they kind of implement the stadium audio, which is kind of okay, and you can really hear the sound of the ball hitting the bat, which I think is a pleasurable sound to hear in sports.
Very pleasing.
And for that,
Okay.
and for that reason, I think that it's going to be okay. As long as we keep everybody negative of the virus, I don't see why this can't be a success for the MLB. I know Monte has his displeasure with the traveling of the players and whatnot by the MLB commissioner, and there are some things there. But I think overall, if everything goes kind of how they've gone over these past couple of days that the MLB's been going on, I don't know. I think it's been exciting. If you're a baseball fan, I don't know really what there's to complain about. Everybody's going in. There's a lot of parity in the league right now. There's not a single, after this weekend, there's not a single undefeated team left, and there's not a winless team either. So everybody at least has one loss, and everybody has at least one win. And I think that's when you only have 60 games, and some teams have already played. I think the most anybody's played is 3 games so far. So you already have 56 games left. And, I mean, everybody's kind of in the same boat. There's no one too far ahead of anybody already. So I'm excited for these last couple 3 games.
Yeah, it's been extremely enjoyable for me. I'd say probably in the group I'm the biggest baseball fan that there is. So I have to give a shout out to a few guys who have really stood out this weekend. Nelson Cruz, guy's old as dirt, had 7 RBIs today. Pretty impressive, 2 home run game. Our old friend Eric Hosmer carrying the Padres, and had they not blown it today, they would have been the only undefeated team. Just blew it late, but Eric Hosmer carrying the Padres. And then a Rockies pitcher who decided to make his comeback after there was a pandemic for the first time since 2013. Got the Rockies their first win of the season. First time pitching in 2,600 days. Came back, beat the Rangers. So there's been a lot of exciting stuff going on. There's been a lot of news off the field too. Mookie Betts signing 12 years with the Dodgers after it looked like he might not play any games with them. Justin Verlander participating in the Astros Shame Tour and, getting some rightful karma with the elbow injury that may or may not keep him out for the season. There's been disputing reports. So it's been a very eventful first weekend, and I'm excited for more of it to come, as long as, again, it said, nobody gets COVID and ruins it for everyone. Rudy.
I'm still holding on to my prediction. The Royals, after this first weekend, this first series, they're sitting 1-2. The road to losing 40 games looks clear as day.
They're actually on pace to go exactly 20-40.
Exactly.
But that would mean they lose every single series.
Do we expect them to win one?
Hell yeah.
One series, yes, I do expect them to win
What
at least.
What series are they winning?
We get to
Multiple.
play the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Multiple?
We get to play the Pirates.
Yes,
I bet they win at least one game.
The Pirates?
Yes.
That means the Royals win the series.
They win in 2 games then.
Why are you hating on the
I'm
Royals?
I'm not hating on the Royals.
That is hating.
I have a prediction, and I'm sticking to it.
Monte's a Pirates fan because Gerard Dyson plays there now.
I
not
mean, Zumbaya, baby.
No, the Royals should win multiple.
We should beat the Tigers. I think
Yeah,
we beat the
like-
Tigers in a few series. We better
We
win at least one.
we play them 4 times. They're our next series.
We better win. You better split the Tigers at the very worst.
We play
but the Tigers just beat the Reds.
Exactly.
supposed to be
So
a pretty good
anything
team.
can happen.
Which
The
is why they
Royals
can
are
win
losing 40 games.
Oh my!
Only thing I have to say about opening day, well, I think we was all a little upset with the weather in New York or in Washington. Seemed like God didn't want baseball to be started right away, which
He got my Yankees a win, so I'll take
I
it.
don't think that was God's fault. I think the home run Stanton hit opened the clouds and brought the rain down.
The Rays earned a temporary fan for the season with their tweet on opening day about how it's a great day to arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor.
Always a good day.
Yeah, always a good day to have that happen. Still
waiting.
Any day for
Still
that to
waiting.
But yeah, so Rays gained a Corona season fan. They win more than 20 games, may have to stick with them.
We'll win more than 20.
Yeah, they'll have more than 20. I
Yeah.
guarantee that. Some more stuff that's kind of off the field of baseball. The Blue Jays are still, unfortunately, not able to play in their home stadium, so they're currently playing in Buffalo, a AAA team in Buffalo, New York. They're playing in their stadium. They have yet to have a home game, so we'll have to see how that looks. I'm not sure what that stadium looks like, but I'll definitely want to watch when they're on television. I'm interested to see what a AAA ballpark looks like.
Yeah, AAA parks, they're not going to be nearly as fancy as the MLB ballparks. But if you're the Blue Jays, who are an extremely young team, and you've had all your players come up through the ranks, they're all extremely used to playing at this field. Whereas a lot of these other major leaguers that are going to be playing have never played in Buffalo, which is just a weird place in and of itself, Buffalo, New York. I think the Blue Jays probably don't mind it at all. All of their players, and I mean all of their best players, are extremely young, like our age. So, if you're listening, feel bad about that. And also, yeah, I don't think this will affect the Blue Jays players.
Yeah, I agree. This won't affect them at all. It's not like there's going to be fans in the stadium. It's not a huge drop-off in, fans. Not really much of a home field advantage in baseball, in my opinion. If anything, if the field's shorter, they're going to be knocking them out the park.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of knocking things out the park, the NBA, 0 positive tests for all 346 players down in the bubble.
God bless.
Now, we may get one with Lou Will taking a little Dennis Rodman hiatus, go hanging out with Jack Harlow. Somewhere, and it was popping. Let's just say that. Wasn't no questions about if it was popping or not.
He was just getting some wings.
It was popping.
Yeah, he thought he could fly that night.
Along with our wonderful Pacers friend, have to go out here and give the Pacers a shout out for how much they suck with Domantas Sabonis leaving the bubble with a significant injury, questionable to return. And this brought up something that I don't think any of us thought about. What happens if one of those guys gets a shoulder tear or something and needs an MRI? Do they have that down at the bubble, or are they going to have to send them out for that and then have to quarantine when they get back?
No, there's no way they don't have something like that prepared.
Yeah, they actually talked about this in MLS because they don't have MRIs where they're playing. But the NBA, who seems to be more on top of this than any other sports league, they've probably got something. I just saw a story about Pelicans players having a minor dental procedure. So they brought in...
They built a barber shop.
They did build...
There's going to be an MRI.
They brought dentists into the bubble with them. I didn't even know people had team dentists.
I don't know. That was just a thought that I had. Like, what if... if they didn't have that, you have to fly back home for, and just an MRI or an X-ray, and then you come back clear, you're good to play, and you still got to quarantine for 10 days before you can even step on the court again.
Yeah, but chances are, if you need an MRI, you're probably not playing anyway within the next 10 days, so that'll be your resting time anyway.
It's about to be hockey players out there not revealing injuries until after.
Oh, please don't do that. That would not be good. But I think the scrimmages, I think they've been entertaining. They've been, got a lot of buzz on Twitter and all over social media. A lot of key players have just been playing about a quarter or so. Some have played to about halftime. It's been interesting to see the different lineups. Some young guys getting their chance to play. I know, like for the Lakers, they've gotten quite a bit of guys on their G League team out there. You look at a young team like the Nuggets, and we were discussing them a little bit off air. They look like they're going to be a very good team down in the bubble. Bull's finally healthy. They got Michael Porter Jr. ready to go. So a lot of teams that I'm excited for. I'm so glad that the season's it's finally coming. Starting on Thursday, Lakers, Clippers, and then I believe it's also Jazz and the Pelicans is who they play. So 5:30 Central Time for the Utah game, and then for the Battle of LA, 8 o'clock on TNT.
One team that won't be participating in the bubble or the playoffs for the foreseeable future, the New York Knicks hired Tom Thibodeau as their head coach. Tom Thibodeau. Everybody knows him as the Bulls coach who played Derrick Rose too long and played Jimmy Butler too long. Basically plays all of his players too long until they're worn down come postseason time.
And fed up.
And now look, Thibodeau's the right hire because he's not going to wear down these young Knicks players, and they're not going to see the postseason, so he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. What did you guys think about the hire? You think it was the correct hire?
I think they could have done better, but I think it was a safe pick. I mean, I think this would be the best thing that the Knicks have seen in a while. This is their 7th coach in the last decade. Like, you got coaches out here not even lasting more than a season. I think Thibodeau's definitely a quality enough coach that you can keep him around, let him kind of build. He'll be a project, but I mean, it's the Knicks. The franchise is a project in itself. So I don't think it's a bad hire. I mean, he has one Coach of the Year award under his belt. I mean, he was not very good in Minnesota, but then again, who has? So kind of not the greatest thing just to go based off of, just because he was fired mid-season by the Timberwolves. No, not a lot of people have had success there, so I don't think you can hold his feet to the fire just for that. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, just that really what's going to come down to is they need better coaching, but they just need a better front office in general. And I think that that's something that's out of Tom Thibodeau's hands anyway. So it's more of attracting the right free agents and getting better front office guys above the head coach. But as far as the head coach himself, I don't have a problem with it.
I thought it was an interesting hire. Of course, they went with a big name, a former head coach already. I struggled with it because he's known for running his players basically into the dirt. And they've got a pretty young Ross over there, drafting R.J. Barrett and Kevin Knox the last 2 seasons. You've got some young guys. You don't really want to start running them into the ground at a very early stage of their careers. I mean, we all know the unfortunate injuries that happened with that Chicago Bulls team, leading with Derrick Rose, who hasn't ever been the same after that, most people would say. The name that I always see popping up when any coach gets hired is current TNT commentator Mark Jackson, who gets a lot of credit for the development of Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and even Draymond Green and that gang of guys before Steve Kerr stepped in and kind of took them just to all new heights. A lot of people say he needs to be given another shot, especially with a young team like this team. If he get an opportunity to start developing players, you never know what can happen. I think the NBA likes to stick with some of the bigger names, though. You usually see the same 4 or 5 coaches losing a job, getting another job. So it's very interesting with the coaching carousel in the NBA.
Yeah, I wasn't as against this as when I first heard the news, because I first heard the news and I thought, well, that sucks for Tom Thibodeau. But he took over that Timberwolves team, and like Gannon said, they're kind of a project franchise as well. He actually took them to a 45-37 record before being fired the next season. And when he was fired the next season, they were 1 game below 500. So I think the Timberwolves as an organization were a little quick to pull the plug on Tom. And I think if you're looking at this, trying to, find a way to be optimistic about the hire, Mitchell Robinson for the Knicks could be a candidate for a most improved type player next year because of the work Tom Thibodeau does with good defensive big men. I mean, we see Joakim Noah without him. If he can make Joakim Noah look good,
That was a defensive player of the year.
With the skill set Mitchell Robinson has, Tom could do some things with that. But really, in the NBA, it starts with getting better players. So until he has better players than what he has now, we shouldn't expect too much from him.
They just have horrible luck. They never do well in the draft lottery. When they do well, they pick the wrong player. It's just terrible over there. Like, there's a good chance we could see them with the opportunity to draft LaMelo Ball and just mess it up somehow.
Remember when they drafted the right guy and now he's in Dallas?
Yeah. And so they even drafted the right dude and couldn't even keep him. And then they lost 2 superstar free agents to the little franchise in New York.
All because they didn't want to give Kevin Durant the max. Why are you having a meeting with that man if you're not going to give him the max?
Unreal. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and introduce my main man Zach here. He's going to preview the NHL restart coming up. It's starting right here this week. More sports coming, and here he is, guys.
Hey, what's up, guys? Big shout out to these 3 here, and even Connor. May his spirit be with us. Big shout out to them for letting me come on here to talk about my favorite sport in the world. I'm a big hockey fan. I want to go ahead and put the bias out there right up front. I am a St. Louis Blues fan.
Boo.
And yes, I'm going to talk about them a lot. Okay, so be ready.
Yeah, so we brought Zach on because, as you guys probably could have guessed from knowing us at all, we're not the most well-equipped to talk about hockey. And in this time...
We're learning.
Yeah, in this time when sports are coming back, it's good for us to learn more about new sports. We've been able to branch out. Monte he got over his fear. He watched a UFC fight, I believe. So he finally saw that.
Good for you.
Now, I know he's not afraid of seeing grown men hug each other anymore. So we've all been experiencing new sports. And
Truly
so,
frightening.
Zach, the question I would ask you, award season, just like the NBA, they've already announced it's over. All the decisions are made. And we need to know some players to look for. So just, why don't you run down all the awards that you've got for the NHL, who the winners are, so we know who to be looking for during this restart.
All right, well, I'm going to start off by explaining what the awards actually are, because the NHL is different than basically every other sport, and all the awards have names. And they're not just MVP or Comeback Player of the Year. They all are named after people.
Yeah, they're different and special, and we have to respect that.
That's just the way it is. So first up, we're going to go with the Hart Trophy. This is essentially the NHL's MVP. It is voted on by the players, coaches, executives. It's kind of a group effort. Right now, we have the 3 typical nominees. It is Nathan MacKinnon, Artemi Panarin, and Leon Draisaitl. Those are going to be your 3. The very easy decision for who wins the Hart this year. It's Leon Draisaitl, guy who made an impact, plays with the best player in the world, Connor McDavid. If you dispute that, you can come talk to me. Artemi Panarin made a great shot at it. I think they gave Nate McKinnon the nod just because. Doesn't really deserve to be in that conversation, but we're going to go with Leon Draisaitl. And then, same token, we have the Ted Lindsay, which is the other MVP, as voted on by the media. That also goes to Leon Draisaitl. That one's pretty easy.
Sweeper.
Yeah, he swept everyone that he's in, so good for him. Next up, we have the Calder Trophy, the Calder Memorial. That is the NHL's Rookie of the Year. That is between Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, and then the rookie from Chicago that I don't care about. I am going to make the controversial decision and go with Quinn Hughes. I know at this point the consensus really is with Cale Makar, both outstanding young defensemen, but I think right now it's Quinn Hughes.
Michigan man.
Yeah, that is a Michigan man. Toby is, how you say, hot to trot for this man. Next up, we're going to go with the Selke Memorial. That is the best defensive forward. One of the many odd titles and awards within the NHL. Right now, the nominees are Ryan O'Reilly of the St. Louis Blues, Patrice Bergeron for Boston, and Sean Couturier of Philadelphia. That is exactly the same candidates as it was last year and the year before that, actually. And this year we're going to go with a little two-peat for Ryan O'Reilly. You can easily make the case for all three of those guys, and all three of them seem pretty worthy of it. But I am going to go with Ryan O'Reilly. Call me Blues bias. That's because I am. Next up, we have the Norris Trophy. This goes to the best defenseman in the league. I'm going to skip all the nominees. It's John Carlson, and it's not even close. This man put up a ridiculous amount of points for a defenseman, was on track for north of 100, and for those of you that know anything about hockey, that's a lot. That is way, way more than any defenseman should get. So it's John Carlson of the Washington Capitals. That's an easy one.
So you've given us a lot of names.
Yeah, a lot of names in here, and yeah, a lot of them are foreign too. So
I was looking at my co-host here, and they looked like they were going to have a tough time pronouncing a lot of these names.
Yeah, wouldn't get a single one of them right.
a lot of them are easy though. Most
Yeah.
of those guys are Canadians. I've only said one non-Canadian or American.
No, you're good on the names. Who wants to win
Dreisaitl's German.
Who wants to win a Selkie? I don't think I want to
Best
win
defensive forward?
That's just not a name I think I would want to win.
With the
Just,
Selkie? What about
yeah.
the Lady Bing that I'm going to talk about here in a minute?
The lady.
Excuse me.
All right, next up we have the Vezina Memorial. That goes to the best goalie in the league. The nominees, the main ones that you really need to know about are, it's Connor Hellebuck. I'm not even going to name the nominees. It's Connor Hellebuck, and if you disagree with that, you really don't know hockey. Without Connor Hellebuck, the Winnipeg Jets are basically nothing. They are a basement team in the Western Conference, and he is the reason why they even have a chance and are in the playoffs. Not even a team that lucked into the playoffs. They're actually there. So we got two more awards, these last two. I'll run through them pretty quickly. They are the non-actual performance-based, really. The Lady Bing, which goes to the player which exemplifies leadership both on and off the ice. I chose Ryan O'Reilly. It seems like that is a consensus amongst the NHL media. I just went with Ryan O'Reilly. That's an easy one. And then we have the Jack Adams, which is Coach of the Year. I'm going with Tortorella, John Tortorella of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I know Toby is going to have a problem with that because he is not a fan of the Columbus Blue Jackets in any way.
Everything in Columbus sucks ass.
John Tortorella doesn't. The Columbus team also does not. They're pretty solid. John Tortorella is really the reason Columbus is any good. They have an up-and-coming goaltender, up-and-coming offense, solid defense. They're a great team. And that's mostly because John Tortorella really whips that team into shape.
So you're talking about teams being whipped into shape. A lot of preparation into the season. And I feel like the same teams that we saw last year are the two favorites this year. Are there any teams that this season really surprised you that really got their stuff right and could make a run in the playoffs here?
So yeah, those two teams would be obviously the St. Louis Blues, defending Stanley Cup champions, and then the Boston Bruins. Those were very clearly the 1 and 2 in the league. It wasn't really that close. It was a lot closer with the Blues in Colorado. Boston was clearly the best team in the East. But as far as teams that really surprised me and surprised a lot of people, one that I'm going to go with is the Philadelphia Flyers. That is a team that a lot of people didn't have all that high expectations out of. They got outstanding play from a 22-year-old goaltender in Carter Hart, who stepped up and very nearly made a run at the Vezina Trophy late in the season. Philadelphia is a team that is most likely going to surprise some people into these playoffs.
Now, do you think there's any chance that these teams could unseat the Bruins or Blues, any of these surprise teams?
The only one I would say is, as far as surprise teams, the only one that I would say could be Philadelphia. The West seems pretty straightforward to me. You've got St. Louis, you've got Colorado, you've got Vegas, and it's pretty much that three-man race, which is unfortunate for the West, which I do think is the better conference overall, but those three teams are head and shoulders above the rest.
So real quick, Stanley Cup prediction and playoff MVP prediction, the Conn Smythe Award.
No, Conn Smythe. So I have in the finals the St. Louis Blues and the Boston Bruins once again. I don't think there's really a team that can upset them. That can knock those two off the track with a rematch here. I have St. Louis. You can call me biased once again. It's because I am
Biased.
I got the Blues in 7. Blues in 7 games. Another really outstanding series between these two. It's going to be good. I'm very excited for it. I'm excited for these playoffs to get started. It's going to be the best.
We're going to introduce our favorite teams to you. We haven't talked about hockey. Monte's team won with a shot.
Vegas Golden Knights.
I don't really necessarily have a favorite. I will, I guess, to stick with. I'm a Tennessee Titans fan. To stick with the Nashville theme, I'll stick with the Nashville Predators. They're a pretty solid team.
I myself am a Sharks fan, and as you could probably tell from that conversation, we did not make it, even in an enhanced playoff. My second favorite team were the Detroit Red Wings, who not only didn't make it, but were flat out embarrassing the whole season, which gives me a chance to pick a new team to cheer for in the playoffs. And I've got one from the East, one from the West that I will be bandwagoning on hard for the playoffs. And when we win, I'll act like I was there the whole time. Those teams are the Philadelphia Flyers,
Boo.
which goes against everything that I stand for, cheering for a team from Philly. But
Oh my gosh.
as Meek Mill said, icy as a hockey rink. Philly person, I am Flyer. And that really resonates with me. So we're going to go Flyers there. And in the West, the Dallas Stars. Yep. Because I think a Dallas and Philadelphia, competing for something that actually matters is going to be super fun. Because the NFC East just doesn't do it for me anymore.
Fly,
It's
Eagles, fly.
more fun to cheer for the cup instead of, the race for 9 and 7. So
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for our NHL return to the ice. Be on the lookout for that as games kick off on Saturday, August the 1st. I believe it starts off with the New York Rangers going against the Carolina Hurricanes. Can't wait for that, as not the biggest hockey fan, but definitely will tune in for sure for the playoffs, as that is one of the greatest things I think to watch when it comes down to it, when it means the most. So definitely tune into that as well. Thank you again, Zach, for previewing that for us. Knowledge is greatly appreciated. All right, switching gears over to the MLS now, as we now are into the round of 16. As we had some great matchups on Saturday, some close games. Orlando took out Montreal 1-0. We had the Philadelphia Union take out New England 1-0. On our Sunday here, NYCFC beat Toronto FC 3-1, and currently are sporting Kansas City. They are playing the Vancouver Whitecaps as we await the result in that game. They are 0-0 at the half. If they do indeed win, they will be playing the Philadelphia Union. So definitely keep an eye on that, as well as they'll be on to the quarterfinals if they can somehow get us a goal within these next 45 minutes, or they will head to extra time.
For the glory of the city.
For the glory of the city. I love it. All right, well, we're going to transition right over into our Twitter talk. This is a great segue, because speaking of changing names, the old Washington Redskins have now changed their name officially to the Washington Football Team. They have not come up with a new quote-unquote mascot for the name yet. They're just going to roll into the 2020 season with this name. Lots of just clowning going on with this, as they can't come up with a new name, an official name for the team, so they just adopted Washington Football Team. It sounds very funny to say out loud. LeBron even hurt Kevin Durant's feelings about it. What do you think about going into 2020, the new NFC East team, Washington Football Team?
I think this shows the power of the media. Because if you think about it, the last month or so, this is what everyone's been referring to them as. There's podcasts I listen to, Pat McAfee, I think he was the first to start calling them this, and it just snowballed into the other ESPN network shows. So they didn't really do too much work with this. We could have came up with a better name than this. You could have stuck us in a meeting for an hour. We could have came up with a better name, an actual team design. Because this just looks, it looks lazy. And they already have so much going on internally in their organization that to just come out lazy, this is a chance to rebrand everything. You not necessarily sweep all the accusations under the rug, but this is your chance to kind of set the tone for a new organization and a new culture, and you failed.
yeah, and the name sounds, looks, everything about it screams 2-14, which I think is fair. Completely ruined the news of Alex Smith coming back from injury. Old friend alert. Because you can't stop laughing that the Washington Football Team quarterback is back healthy. Like, yeah, the Washington football team. What about the DC Defenders, you know? But I think this is something they had to do because they had to get rid of the name. But they don't have anything set in stone for a complete rebrand yet. So when they do rebrand, they better be, like Monte said, they better be coming with something. Because if they come out and they're like, yeah, we're the Washington Jackets, you're like, that's just stupid.
They had so many good concepts out, though. There were people that literally were throwing ideas at them.
We want them to be better than they want to be good at what they do. We want them to do more.
We want them to be 3-13.
Hey,
no.
it's a step in the right direction.
2-14, just beat the Cowboys every year, then we're good.
To me, it just looks lazy. And continuing with what I think is lazy, the NHL announced a new expansion team in Seattle, and they named them the Kraken.
I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh at that. That's
The Kraken.
for that. No, I'm sorry, that just does not. I don't even know how to like describe this. Like the Kraken, like it's not a bad name. It just don't sound right. The Seattle Kraken. And it's an NHL team.
It's definitely something you're gonna have to say a lot to like get used to it.
Seattle Kraken.
One thing they did do right was they got the uniform right. I think they've got the logo.
The logo's
right.
not bad. Yeah, that's
what
what I'm saying. It's not.
I think they got a lot right. You're just gonna have to say Seattle Kraken. Sort of like get used to it.
I am happy that Seattle got another professional team up there. For the longest, we thought they were gonna get an NBA expansion team, so I'm glad that they are getting another taste of professional sports in there.
Yeah.
I do think the Kraken fans, whatever they come up with, are going to be just outstanding and amazing to watch on television.
It's going to be the crackheads inside the crack house cheering for the Kraken.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, look.
That would be epic, though.
We saw the Knights. When the Knights first came,
Yeah.
it was
That
amazing. The fan base
introduction was
amazing.
unreal.
They really ran with it. Seattle could do a lot of the same. Release the Kraken before every game. Like, I don't know. I'm not against this name. It, like I said, it's going to take some getting used to calling a team the Kraken, because any team that doesn't end sort of with an S is kind of weird, you know.
Yeah.
To say it first, but yeah, I think I have to see them on the ice obviously first, like uniforms, all that, see how everything looks, what they do, but yeah, I'm just happy Seattle's got a team like Monte said.
All right, and so going into one of our favorite segments, as we have been doing now for the past 3 weeks, we're going to go off of a CBS list that breaks down the top 10 at a different position each week. This week, we're going off of Cody Benjamin, writer for CBS. He decided to go with the top 10 tight ends entering 2020, as he has Hunter Henry at 10 for the Los Angeles Chargers. He has Tyler Higbee at 9, followed by Austin Hooper, Jared Cook, Darren Waller, and then to round out his top 5, he has Rob Gronkowski, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, George Kittle, followed by Travis Kelce. I'd say overall pretty solid list. I think he got 1 and 2 right, as we'll have a nice healthy debate about that here in a second. But what was your guys' original thoughts about his list?
As in terms of CBS list, this guy's a genius based on some of the other lists we've seen. And I think when we were going through this, I think all of us pretty much have the same idea of the top 10 to 12 tight ends in the league. I think they pretty much stand out well ahead of the others. I didn't really have any issue with this list. The only thing I'd say is it's really hard to rank Rob Gronkowski, having not played at all last season and coming back from retirement. He's such a wild card. But I'm glad, because the CBS Sports guy has him pretty similar to where I do.
Yep, and then going in that, Toby's list here, he's got Evan Ingram at 10, followed by Hunter Henry, Jared Cook at 8, Austin Hooper at 7, Mark Andrews at 6, he has Darren Waller at 5, Rob Gronkowski at 4, followed by Ertz, then Kittle, then Kelce for his 3-2-1. And then I'll just go ahead and reveal the rest of ours here again. And here I have Austin Hooper at 10, Hunter Henry at 9, Tyler Higbee at 8, Jared Cook at 7, Darren Waller at 6, Mark Andrews at 5, Gronk at 4, and then followed by Ertz, Kittle, and Kelce. Where we get into the controversy is Monte's list. He's got Kyle Rudolph at 10, Austin Hooper at 9, Hunter Henry at 8, Jared Cook 7, Darren Waller 6, Gronk at 5, Mark Andrews at 4, Zach Ertz at 3, very stupidly, Travis Kelce at 2, George Kittle at 1, and then Connor, while he's already ate his cactus and he's recovering from that, he delivered his list to us with Evan Ingram at 10, Austin Hooper at 9, Jared Cook at 8, Mark Andrews 7, Hunter Henry 6, Darren Waller 5, followed by Gronk at 4, then Ertz, Kittle, and Kelce at 3, 2, and 1. So obviously, the elephant in the room, Monte is the only one to put Kittle over Kelce. And go ahead with your explanation for that.
So, knew this would be a little bit of a debate. I put Kittle over Kelce strictly because I think the two line up and match up pretty evenly across the board. I just think George Kittle is the better run blocker, and it's been proven. I think coming from a team that likes to run the ball, obviously value a tight end who can block a little more than my co-host here. But that's the outlier for me. George Kittle, better blocker. I think if you switch the two, Kittle could put up the same kind of numbers that Kelce puts up in the Chiefs offense, but I don't think that Kelce's able to hold down the blocking that the 49ers do on a consistent basis like Kittle does. And that's why I ranked him number 1 for me.
It really is a complete difference in strategies between where the two play. Myself personally, having watched two teams, my two favorite teams, the Patriots, Chiefs, all time have had great pass catching tight ends. With Rob Gronkowski, Tony G, early KC days. I look at tight end as a spot where that's extra production, because you want to get it from your receivers, obviously. They're going to do nothing but catch passes. They don't want to be out there blocking. Running backs, they've got to produce. They're getting the ball. Tight end is extra production. And whenever you can get extra production, that really helps the team. And nobody is more productive than Travis Kelce has been over the past 4 or 5 years. Not even Rob Gronkowski. So, for me, that's why I go Kelce 1. I know it's a difference in styles. I know if Kittle played in a team that was more pass-happy, then maybe he'd have more than 12 career touchdowns. But, yeah, I mean, Kelce proves it time out, time in. And I think watching in the playoffs really, because we have this debate. Like, this isn't something that's new, the Kittle-Kelce debate. But watching Kelce in the playoffs, that 3-touchdown quarter against Houston, where the guy's literally unguardable. Like, it's hard to find a tight end that's literally unguardable. And in the playoffs, he proved it. And that's why he's number 1 for me. I think there's much more he can do in the pass game. And as good as Kittle is as a run blocker, I just think Kelce's the more versatile player at the tight end position.
Absolutely. That's when we kind of got off on a tangent a little bit off air earlier. But I just think going in, if I was just starting my team from scratch, obviously blocking is a big part of the game of football and a big part of the position at tight end. But what you lose, I feel like, in Kelce with blocking, who's not a terrible blocker, he's just not as good as George Kittle. I think you gain in a bigger way in his receiving. I think he's just flat out a better route runner. He's just virtually unguardable. And I think that even if you put Kittle with Mahomes and in this system, his numbers would go off. I just don't think it would go off to the extent of Travis Kelce. And I think that no matter what system you put Travis Kelce in, he's just unguardable. He's just a freak of nature. And that's why I have to put him at number 1 until I see just Kittle. I don't know. I don't even know. Unless Kelce goes his numbers kind of just go down. I just don't see, because he's done it again. Like Toby said, he's done it for year in and year out, and he was doing it before Mahomes was even in the league. So it's not even that he has to have the best quarterback, because he was doing it with Alex Smith as well. So I just Kelce has to be one for me.
It'll be interesting to see if Gronk can jump into this top 2, top 3 conversation after a year off of football. If you saw him or paid any attention to him, you could definitely tell he was not in football weight in terms of playing. So it'll be interesting to see after a year off, linking back up with his old butt buddy Tom Brady, if they can reignite their connection and jump right back into making him in the top 3 tight ends of current day at the moment.
Yeah, well, we all went Ertz at 3. Every single list had Ertz at 3, which I think is fair because Ertz, he gets thrown at all the time, right? Guys like a magnet, a ball magnet. All right, that's just what it is. Carson Wentz hates throwing to other people. Zach Ertz
he just doesn't have anyone else to throw to.
Zach Ertz gets the targets. Rob Gronkowski, it's weird, and he was such a wild card. I didn't know where anybody was going to rank him because when he's healthy, and that was a big thing for him. His injuries is why he retired in the first place. When he was healthy, there were people out there making claims that he could have been the best tight end to ever play football. And 1 year removed, yeah, he doesn't have the football weight, and he didn't get any playing time in. But one thing he avoided was any more injuries. And we've seen guys miss seasons and come back and be productive. And I don't know him. He's got to learn a whole new system now with Bruce Arians. But he's going to have the same quarterback. And if he's healthy, he's in shape, and he comes ready to play, I think he could have a monster year. Of course, the 3 guys we just mentioned are perennial, near 100 receptions, 1,000-yard type guys, which blows every other tight end here besides Darren Waller out of the water. But, I think Gronkowski could definitely play his way back. But that's also showing my bias a little bit.
Well, real quick point, because I agree with almost literally everything you said. My only problem is where Rob Gronkowski's injuries are. And his was, he announced after he retired from football, he had several concussions. And that's not something that, if you just take a year off, can just heal up, So, and he hasn't played in a whole season, so he takes one. We don't know how he's going to react. He takes one kind of hit near up, like in his upper body, after having already announced all those concussions, almost based on how he was describing it, almost pretty much guaranteed that he has CTE. Like, I don't know. That's the only thing. It'd be one thing if he had bad knees, had a bad shoulder, stuff like that, but
which he does.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. But head injuries is something that I'm real hesitant on because, that just affects you as a person, period. Forget about your skill set on the field. Not being able to fully function just in a normal day as a human being is my concern. And that's what he left. And that's what he left the game for. So this isn't necessarily like an Andrew Luck thing, who just had injuries all over the place. He would rather walk away than be injured. This man literally, he was talking about some dark stuff after he returned. So that's my only thing with that. Otherwise, yeah, if he can avoid that, he has no concussions, nothing like that, then I don't see why he can't return back to his regular self.
Well, Gronk's problem was every time he hit the turf, he just fell like a tree. There was no gracefulness or any soft landings. He was slam right into the ground. But another thing with injuries, which you kind of see in our list, where some of us ranked Hunter Henry and where some of us had or didn't have Evan Ingram in our top 10. I know I didn't have Evan Ingram in my top 10 just because he's missed an absurd amount of games in, 2 seasons, 3 seasons?
3. And
Hunter Henry, when healthy, this kind of goes back to Connor's argument with J.J. Watt in our last episode. Hunter Henry, when healthy, he makes a case for top 5 when healthy, but never healthy. He's had 2 ACL injuries, if I recall correctly, and those are significant to come back from. So, wish him all the best. He's out there. When he's out there, he's easily top 5, easily up in that area of being one of the better pass catching and route running tight ends, but never healthy, and the best availability is availability.
Yeah, and tight end's a position where you're going to get hurt because you're gonna face contact every play. At least you'd better, because even coming off the line, somebody's got to chip you. So right away you're getting smacked by a DN, no matter what, when you go on your route. At least you should, or else you'll get burned by the good ones. So there should be contact every play if you're a tight end. You're going to get dinged up along the way. And it was weird for me, because doing my list, I had to debate between Evan Ingram and Tyler Higbee as to who was going to get my 10. Higbee doesn't have to worry about the injuries. Evan Ingram, probably the more talented tight end overall. And I'm an optimist. I believe that if these guys can stay healthy and do stay healthy, that they're going to, reach peak performance for them, which is why I put Ingram in the top 10. And I believe that's why Connor probably put Hunter Henry so much higher than we had him. But yeah, this is a very injury-prone position. And going back to Gronk, the last football play that I remember Gronk making was the diving catch to set up the only touchdown in Super Bowl 53. And it's weird going back and listening to him talk after that, like Gannon said, because he said some pretty revealing stuff. But it never, in that season before he stopped, it never looked like it actually affected his play to the point where, we couldn't consider him a top guy or a constant threat. But yeah, CT is a different beast, and so Gannon bringing up that's a great point. I just hope he stays healthy.
Yeah, I mean, we want these guys healthy. Like, we want, with the absence of sports, we want everything to be as perfect as it can be. We want everybody at their best, the best playing the best, everybody healthy. That's the only way to have it. All right, so great discussion as always, guys. I think we decided we're gonna do edge rushers next week. So kind of the guys who were the exact opposite of the tight ends. So we gave our D-line last week, tight ends this week. We're going to do pass rushers next week as we bring it back over to the defensive side. We're now going to get into our final thought. We'll stick with you. We'll start with you, Monte. Which final thought for us this week?
So, preferencing next week, I'll be taking a mini vacation, so we'll miss next week's episode, but we'll be sure to get my thoughts and comments in so I can't get any wild Connor-esque thoughts and mentions out. My list, even though I will not be here, will still be better than Connor's, so will not get killed.
I agree with everything he just said. we would flame the Broncos or somebody.
Still might.
Nah, we'll leave them alone. They got my boy.
Speak for yourself.
They got my boy Drew Lock. So the Broncos are in my good graces right now. As long as they give him a chance, which I told them to, they should have started him.
And we beaten the Titans week 1.
Yeah, that will not happen.
Will
actually.
happen.
So
book it.
That's you can book that L. But anyway, Toby, your final thought?
It's kind of funny to me that Lou Williams would, just voluntarily leave to go hang out with Jack Harlow, since Jack Harlow's sort of like up and coming, and Lou Williams is so old, man. If you got it, flaunt it. Sweet Lou, I know why they call him that now. Look, just overall a good guy, Lou Williams, and I hope that he didn't contract anything, venereally or COVID-wise, and he's back to action, full force, because I need to see the 2 LA teams play, even if it's not in Staples Center. I want to see it. I want Lou to be there. You bring Jack Harlow if he wants, I guess.
No.
Probably won't let him in.
Get it
No,
poppin'.
he's not authorized to be in the bubble. I don't care who you are. If you're not an NBA player, you're not getting in there. All right, so for my final thought, some very interesting breaking news midweek. I have like several notifications from ESPN. So when I saw breaking news, I'm thinking it was probably some NBA or NFL, something crazy happened. Maybe Jamal Adams. No, it wasn't quite that early. I did not expect to see a picture of 54-year-old Mike Tyson being announced that he is now going to be fighting Roy Jones Jr., who is 51 now, as they both are coming out of retirement. Let's just go ahead and say a prayer now for Roy Jones Jr. Mike Tyson, I don't know if y'all have seen this man lately, and we kind of debated that. We talked about this off air, because a 30-second to a minute video doesn't mean you're in great shape. But some of them punches that Mike Tyson was throwing at age 54, my God. Listen, I'm calling it now. Round 2 knockout in favor of Mike Tyson. It's over. Roy Jones Jr., I didn't even know he was that old. I knew he was up there in age, but he's 51. If there's anybody that you don't want to fight that's over 50, it's probably that man there and Mike Tyson. So look for that fight. I can't wait for that. I'm not even sure the exact date yet.
September 12th.
September 12th? Okay, so look out for that. Coming up September 12th, there will be a funeral held in Roy Jones Jr.'s name on the 13th because he's not making it into the third round. Calling it right now.
Yeah, he's going to kill him. Basically, it's going to be a pay-per-view of murder. Live action.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, and when he's there, Logan Paul will be there to film it, just like he did those bodies in Japan, baby. He'll be right there. His brother fights Nate Robinson. Probably the fight we all saw coming. We all knew that was going to happen.
Less surprising than Mike Tyson coming out of retirement.
Exactly. You expect to see Nate Robinson and Jake Paul throw down. That'll be before the Tyson fight.
They should just book Dylan Dennis and Ryan Garcia, too.
I would be intrigued in seeing Nate Robinson box because I assume he can only throw uppercuts.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got two short guys. That joke's not for everybody. That joke is not for everybody. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for that card because I literally have no idea what's going to happen at all. I think Tyson obviously is going to get the win. I don't think they'd have him come back against somebody he could lose to. You know.
He's losing.
But a 51-year-old?
I like if he. Yeah, if
But that's the guy that he's allowed to be over 50.
If Iron Mike wins this fight, I say they put him against Wilder next, just
What?
Litmus test.
No.
Let's see.
No, that's not,
Give
no.
Manny Ruiz next, just to introduce him.
No, none of that.
Moving on to Connor's final thoughts. Since we got a lot of boxing action going, it'd be interesting to see if Connor and his demons could make it on that pay-per-view fight. I'd tune in. Knockout. Round 1, Connor's demons take him out.
Yeah, it's been a constant battle. The bell rung, but the demons are still whooping him to this day. No DQ though, not from the Kansas State Athletic Commission. The guy hasn't learned his lesson yet. Hopefully, this little speech at the end will help him if he listens to this podcast. Hi, Crean.
As always, always love to have fun on this podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in to yet another episode here. We just continue to move across multiple platforms, and I mean, if you guys follow me on Facebook, I'll send a laundry list. Now we've been approved on Google Podcasts as of yesterday. We're on Anchor, we're on Pocket Cast, as well as Radio Public. So. Still trying to get on Apple Podcasts. Still waiting to hear on that one because I know a lot of you guys like to listen on that. But hit us up on Spotify. Continue to give us suggestions, ask us questions, things that you want to hear on the podcast, topics, things like that. So continue to blow us up as we try to push this to be the greatest podcast that there ever was. Once again, big shout out to Zach for coming in and previewing NHL for us. Did a great job. The fact that he's been on as many podcasts as Connor is
Actually, more.
Yeah,
I've been to more podcasts.
Yeah, he's been in person to more podcasts than Connor has. Is quite concerning.
It shows a real dedication on Zach's part.
It does. So, if you know Connor, hit him up and tell him to get his behind here for the next episode.
You could also threaten him.
Yeah, you can threaten him.
Physically.
Thank you guys again for listening to us, and you guys have a great week, all right? Sports are finally back, so tune in. Tell us what you guys think of the NBA and NHL starting up this week. Go Sporty.